Welcome. This is Mebit Marketing and I am your host, Rachel Klaver. I love helping small business owners become more confident and more capable with their marketing. So this podcast is all here to help you do just that. It's me and the help of some great guests helping you learn new skills, new strategies and ideas. Let's jump in and get started. Is the fear of meanies, trolls and haters holding you back on using social media for your business? Or even worse, preventing you from showing up with confidence for your business? I want to help you turn that fear on its head. Look, I used to be crippled with fear. I was bullied as a teen, so I was super sensitive to negative comments. And then mixed with my ADHD, rejection, dysmorphia, a fear of being wrong, and a strong dislike of conflict, it would mess me up so bad. There's something about keyboard warriors who don't even know us and how we allow them to ruin us in our weeks, or even worse, completely erode all of our confidence. In this session, we're going to talk about what a hate comment is, how to spot actual trolls and meanies, and what to do when you get one. Those haters might be doing you a favor. It's all a matter of how we see it. And I'm going to help you reframe your thinking and give you a strategy that will work on any platform. Now, this was originally a LinkedIn Live, so there might be references to comments that have been made by some of the people watching during this episode. So that's what's happening, but hopefully we've managed to remove all the other bits where I was having technical woes. You know me, like to jump in before I plan anything. Right, without further ado, let's learn about how to manage those haters, meanies, and trolls. Hello, and we're going to be talking now how to face the fears of haters, trolls, and meanies. I'm going to share with you a super funny little thing. Thank you so much for joining, those of you that are already here. I'll also be keeping a note. If you want to ask questions at any point, just go ahead and do that. I can see you, Company. Hello, it's lovely to see you here alongside me, and I know some people will be watching it directly on the channels as well, which is great. And I'm just going to open up my thing so I can just check for questions on there so I can multitask. One of the things I'm just going to tell you, it's just freaking hilarious, is that I have ADHD, which will come up later because it affects this topic. And of course, I set this up, decided I was going to do this and start doing some lives more regularly. And of course, didn't tick all the boxes and check for myself that I had all the details and discovered I needed streaming software to do this properly. And I have some, couldn't remember what I had. So I had to quickly go and get a membership to this so that I could do it. So hilarious. And yet only 30 seconds late. Such is the power of a focused ADHD woman who wants to cover a topic. So we are going to be talking about how to face the fear of haters, trolls, and meanies today. And I wanted to talk a little bit about why this is a really important topic for me. I've worked with hundreds of small businesses over the years, probably in the thousands now, and I am a small business marketing strategist. And so I talk to a lot of small business owners, and I know that this is a common fear. This is a fear that people worry about all the time, is how they're going to manage things, what are they going to be doing, how they're going to focus on getting over that fear of showing up, what happens if people are mean to them, how they're going to cope with this. And look, I need to say that I totally understand that. I've had huge issues with this myself. And I think part of the problem is, for some of us, is that we come into this, and I know we overuse the word trauma, but I think a lot of us come into this with a lot of fears that have come from other places. I know for me, I was bullied at school, which definitely cut my confidence. I was in an abusive marriage years and years ago, again, which really cut my confidence and really made me worry about how people would perceive me. For a long time, I was very plus size, and I was older than a lot of the other people that were around me. I wasn't conventionally beautiful. Wasn't great at doing my hair and makeup. And what happens is too, I think the more and more that we do things in marketing, the more we're having to be out there and show our face, we're having to show who we are. And it becomes harder and harder to beat that fear of what's going to happen if I show up and people just don't like me. That's a terrifying thing, especially because our businesses and ourselves are so often quite completely closed together. I also, as I said before, I have ADHD. And with ADHD often comes rejection, dysmorphia, this ultra fear of being rejected. And I have really learned how to manage that a lot, but I do know that it really struggled. And personally for me too, I hate conflict. I was raised in a family that loved having very vivacious discussions about strong statements and beliefs. And it was great if you were on the side of them. And if you were not on the side of them, it was quite scary. And so I have a lot of this stuff. I've had to really fight against a lot of the stuff and really overcome a lot of the things that I'm talking to you about. And here, I'm not talking to this someone who goes, just stop the haters. I see people that are like that, and I look at them and go, damn, I don't know how you do that. Like, you are just freaking amazing how you just manage to just fight back at that person and manage it. But it's not like that. Not everyone is like that. And so I really want to help you learn how to be a person that can feel more confident if you are someone who's holding themselves back because you're worried about haters, trolls, and meanies. I'd love to hear from you as I'm talking through if this is something that you struggle with. Are you someone who does struggle to focus on that, to actually work through that? Are you someone that really does worry about how to present yourself to other people without being nervous about that? Like, give me a comment, let me know, because I would love to know how you cope with that, because I do know that it can be really tricky. And so, yeah, just let me know. It'd be good to find that out. Right. So let's have a little chat about haters and meanies and trolls. So I've spent a lot of time working on this, and I just want to also share that, just for those of you that don't know me, so my name is Rachel Klaver. I'm a content marketing strategist and coach for small businesses, and I also co-own my business with my husband, Rod. I am like this, and he is like this. Perfect combination. We have a small team of marketers and strategists that work with us, and I'm the face of the business. So if anyone is going to say anything bad about us or to us, it's normally going to go to me. Occasionally it goes to Rod, but most of the time it comes to me. Not that it happens very often, but as a social person, if they're going to say anything horrible or mean, it's going to be me they say it to. And so I help with overcoming this mindset for my clients now. Along with all the other things you learn to do around becoming the face of your business, I help and coach with that through my program, the Content Master Web. And it gives you me for a year. I work with you for a year. We do twice a week coaching calls, and then a whole lot of information. We go really deep in all the different types of content you need to build your brand and be a face. And everyone's talked to at the level that they're at. So that's who I am. And I'll add a link to that. If you're interested in working with me, I'll add a link to the live once we're done so you can have a look. But let's just jump in now into the haters, trolls, and meanies. Yes, Kamini, you're doing exactly the right thing. And we're going to talk about how to do that, how to set that time to feel sorry for yourself, because I think that is a really important thing. I also do this, and I love that you're saying that, because I know that this is what I do as well. I also have learned to give myself time. But I want to go through, before we talk about some of that process of how to do that, I want to talk a little bit about what is not a hate comment, because I feel like we've become a little bit overreactive, and there's a lot of confusion around this. The first thing I want to tell you is that the algorithm on each social media platform will protect you to a certain extent from haters, trolls, and meanies. The way that the algorithm works is that you actually they want you to stay on the platform. They want you to like being on the platform. They want you to really enjoy connecting with them. And they want you to stay on the platform as much as possible. And all the platforms know that if the algorithm helps you stay happy on that platform, then you will be on it more. If you're not happy on it, you're going to want to leave, cancel your account, tell all your friends and families that you're burning that platform to the ground and that you're never going to use it again, right? So they don't want you to do that. And so what we're going to do instead is we're going to focus and trust a lot in the algorithm. With your normal community of people that follow you and that you engage with, you will normally end up aligning yourself most of the time with people who think like you, have more values like you, and things like that. Now, that's really great in lots of ways, but let's remember that's not real life. I do think the algorithm can be quite dangerous sometimes, because it helps us get this idea, this overinflated idea that everyone agrees with us, and that's just not normal life. There are always going to be people who disagree with us. There are always going to be people that don't get us. And we need to trust and understand that that's just a normal part of life that we have, right? So we're going to really want to focus on trusting so much that even though we are going to focus and grow in that area with those people who normally love us and hang out with us, that as we grow our profile, as we get better at creating content, there is going to be content of ours that is going to go out beyond the reach of who we normally would talk to. And when that happens, what happens is we're in this lovely, safe little community like this, where there might be a couple of people that don't agree with us, but might ignore us and stuff like that. But as we go out, that group of ideal people that work with us, they're still in there, but they're mixed in with a whole bunch of other people who are coming onto the platform with a whole lot of other stuff going on. There might be people who just had a fight with their partner, who just stubbed their toe, who are having the worst day that they've ever had, who actually hate people that wear big orange earrings, have an issue with someone who's a woman who doesn't wear makeup, has an issue with someone who's plus size, has an issue with someone because you have blue eyes and they have brown eyes and they don't like it, or vice versa, has an issue because they're a racist or they're homophobic or they're anti this or the pro this, and you are pushing a bruise and they wouldn't normally see you, but your content has got so good now that it's being pushed out beyond the reaches of who would normally see it. And that's when we get those haters, those meanies, and those trolls most of the time. So first, trust the algorithm. For the most part, that algorithm will protect you. No matter what happens, it will protect you. And then we can worry about how to manage the haters, trolls, and meanings otherwise. So that's the first thing. The second thing, so just make sure that if you are getting them, it normally means you're being more successful than the average bear, because you're actually being someone whose content's getting pushed out outside of your safe community. So that's like a pat on the back for you. That's a good sign that you're doing a good job. So see it that way. There's also, second thing is, there are always going to be topics that inflame. And it's your choice to talk about them or not. Now, I am someone who doesn't actually talk about topics that inflame very often. So when there was all the stuff around the pandemic and things like that, there was a very rare day that I would talk about something that was self-inflammatory. I have political views like everybody else does. I choose not to share those a lot on a platform like LinkedIn or Facebook or things like that. People can probably work out where my political leanings go, probably from a collection of posts if they were reading everything. But I choose not to have politics as one of the things that I talk about because it inflames people. And I don't want to have something that inflames people. If it was something really strongly that I believed in, I'm neurodiverse and I've got 2 kids that are neurodiverse, I would probably talk about that. And maybe that's going to offend people if they hate people like who have my brain. So there might be things that I do and talk about. My mum's an immigrant, so if there was something that was strong about as anti-immigration or things like that, maybe I would get political at that point. But it would be a conscious choice that I would be prepared for the hate. So I think that's a really important thing too. Or I would be prepared for something that I think is hate, but isn't, which we'll cover in just a moment. So be aware that you might be consciously walking into something. And if you are, and some people love being that person. Some people like being the person that talks about those stressful topics. They get excited. I don't. So it's all about working out the best thing for you and how you process things. And if you've come along to this or you're watching this, it's likely that you don't particularly like having to deal with that stuff. So if that's you, let's just not talk about that stuff as much. Let's talk about potentially safer topics. Now, the problem is, and I'm just making sure I've got my thing here so I can see it. The problem is that you can actually have a problem even if you've done all the right things, even if you haven't got too controversial. And even if you feel like you've done all the right things, you can still have a problem. So the third thing I really want to press home here, and this is the thing that I think there's been cultural problems that have impacted this and are really starting to cause problems in our society and our culture, is this idea that someone is hating on you just because they're challenging what you think about or because they disagree with what you say. And neither of those two things is a hate comment. Let me repeat that again. Just because someone is challenging what you said or disagreeing with you, that does not make it a hate comment. And I was watching someone last year who wrote something that I personally didn't agree with, and a lot of other people didn't agree with. And I really wanted to say something because I felt she had painted, said something that I felt was not quite in alignment also with what she normally says. And I was going to say something, and then I saw a few other people had said things, and she went angry, like, you are a troll, you're a meanie, you're a hater. But actually their comments were quite reasoned and they were reasonable. They were just disagreeing with her. And I know for myself, I have sometimes, when someone has disagreed with me, my immediate reaction is to go, you are trolling, or you are being a meanie, or you hate me, because that's that rejection dysmorphia coming up a little bit. But it's also because I am feeling threatened by this challenge of my statements on my space. And that is not a necessary thing for us to do. We don't need to be doing that. We don't need to be creating that situation for that to happen. We can just enjoy the fact that this person values us enough to take the time out to disagree or share a challenging point of view or ask for a clarification. Now, they still could be a troll or a meanie, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt before we jump in and decide that. I've got another account that's been talking about my health journey, and I had someone who challenged me. And so I came back with a benefit of the doubt answer. She challenged me again. I came back with another benefit of the doubt answer and kept on doing that. And then she started coming in on every video. And that's when I knew she was a troll and a meanie. And she wasn't just trying to challenge me. She was actually getting at me. And then we dealt with that, okay? And we'll talk about how to deal with that. But really what we want to do here is make sure that we realize that we don't have to expect that everyone's going to agree with us. And there's some real benefits around building your own voice when someone else disagrees with you on a post. When someone disagrees with you and they share with you, hey, actually, I don't agree with it. This is how I would do it. Or I remember a few weeks ago, a person that I really admire, who is, she's another marketer, and she was talking about a particular type of marketing. She's like, I don't only ever do it this way, blah, blah, blah. I don't agree with anything else. And I challenged it because actually I teach a different way, and both are all okay and okay to go. And so one of the things that I would encourage you to do is make sure that you are, if you're not able to be challenged on your thoughts and your perspective, that is actually more on you than that person. And check in is also, and this is what I think is really important, check in with what tone you're reading their comments in. If I'm in a bad way, if I'm already feeling a little bit vulnerable, then I'm going to put a sort of a nasty tone to their comment and assume something in there. And I want to use a really simple story to illustrate this. So my first mother-in-law, she was quite a sensitive person, and she still is probably a sensitive person. Haven't talked to her for a while, still alive. Don't want to say was, but she was very sensitive. And I remember this one time in particular where she had cooked us dinner, and it was a really beautiful dinner. And I said, Barbara, this was such a nice dinner. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. And her response was, what was wrong with it? Why are you saying that? What was wrong with it? Because her whole persona, her whole demeanor around it was, you couldn't possibly love this thing. And so even though I was saying positive things, she read into it something that wasn't even there. And it wasn't even in my tone. It was literally just her misreading that. So sometimes I know, like, I sometimes have to check things with somebody else if I'm feeling a bit stressed out, and go, hey, what do you think this is saying? And the person remind me or reset me to help me make sure that I'm actually reading it in the right way, because that can also make a huge impact. And we want to make sure that we're doing that and fixing that up. Okay, so we have this whole idea around the reminder that the hate comment is not a challenge or a disagreement. We want to make sure we're doing that. We want to make sure that we remember that not everyone is necessarily a troll, and make sure we do that. Develop this idea that everyone has to agree with us. We don't have to have that. and you need to check in with that tone before we jump into everything. But of course, it could be nasty, and that's where we're all going to come in. Now, what I'm thinking about is I'm trying to work out, because I honestly have no idea how to do a LinkedIn Live, which I'm doing. I'm also doing this, streaming this in my Facebook group, and I'm really stressed because it says it's live here, but I can't find out how to do it. So I feel like I'm a complete doofus, considering I'm someone who teach people on LinkedIn. I'm going to have a chat to you, Kate, if you find this, so that you can actually work it out, because I've definitely worked out how to do my live, but I'm missing it out somehow and messing it up. Let me just share this in here so these people here can get it, and then we'll come back and we'll share this other bit. I'm sorry for interrupting this bit here for you guys. I hope you do this. Let me just go here, and I'm going to ask Kate what I messed up with afterwards. This is me jumping in and doing something outside my comfort zone. So let's let the trolls come in. Let the trolls come in. Let them come in. Okay, right. So what is it that we experience when we go through a hate comment from a troll or a meanie? I think the first thing that happens is we definitely feel exposed. Do you feel exposed? Is that something that you feel that kind of exposure where you're like, oh my gosh, I just feel so uncomfortable. I don't want to do this. This makes me feel uncomfortable. I wish I wasn't doing this. That kind of feeling, that exposure, that's completely normal. But it's how we manage it afterwards, and Company, you mentioned this before, and I really liked what you said around it, because I think that's very true. We can either choose to obsess over it, or we can choose to reset ourselves in our thinking. And I definitely would have used to always be the obsessor. And on bad days, probably premenstrual days, I thank you, I really appreciate that. Thank you for saying that I'm doing great, because I do feel like, I definitely missed a few bars here. I probably should have checked it on the week. I like to jump myself into things to make myself feel a bit nervous. Thank you, Kate. All right. So when we're looking at obsessing and reacting, I definitely used to be an obsessor. So I used to totally overthink. If someone put anything mean on my post or on a video, I would literally stew about it, even if I'd replied to it. Thanks, Kirsty. Even though I replied to it, I would feel this horrible feeling in my chest. It would impact all my relationships around me. Like I know times when I'd be sitting next to Rod, we just sometimes blob out in front of the television at the end of the day, and he's sitting there and he's watching this thing, and he has no idea, because it's all in my whopping myself into this fervor, then go to bed, and I'd have that horrible churny tummy, and I would worry about it, and I'd wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'd be like, this is what I'm going to say to that person, and I'm just going to cut everything down, and I'm going to leave the internet, and what am I doing? And I would just go into this huge tailspin of absolute fear and horror. And because I used to over-obsess, and I used to overthink, and I used to stress and lie awake stewing, and I could feel this adrenaline coursing through me, and I'd feel rejected, and I'd feel so demotivated about posting, and about whether I was even worth doing what I was doing from one comment. And I'd often feel too scared to post. And I know that all of those things are really common with the people I work with who also have this fear. I was tempted then often, like sometimes we're really tempted then to delete that post. And I really want to encourage you not to do that. Do not allow someone ever to shut your mouth and stop you from putting what was in your heart. If you really wanted to say that thing and it was really important to you, then say it. I think that's really important. And okay, what if it was a massive mistake? What if you went out on your limb and you were accidentally really racist or sexist, or you said something wrong? I still believe you shouldn't necessarily delete that post, but what you can do is walk through and reset and use the fuel for that, even if it was a right comment in the end. So let's have a look around those options. So obsessing is not going to do us any good, right? That is not going to help us. But what we could do is we could reset. And so part of that is just learning to get a deeper awareness of why that hate comment, that nasty person, that troll or that meanie is giving us so much more reaction. So that next time is a little easier. And I'll just share in here one thing too. There are people, I think one of the things, and I want to share this in here now, even though it's a little bit early, is one of the things that I use to reset a lot is the sentence, Not everyone will like me. But I say this afterwards, which helped me reset this. Not everyone will like me, which is okay, because I don't like everyone either. Because it's true. When I realized that when I could acknowledge to myself, when I was no longer freaking out about making everyone like me, and I realized that that was normal, that not everyone would like me, because, spoiler, there are people I don't like, that relaxed me, because I was like, it's normal for not everyone to like me, because I don't like everybody else. There are people that are very nice people, that are decent, amazing, talented, incredible people that for some reason I don't gel with. And other people, lots of other people might love those people, but for some reason I don't gel with them. That doesn't make those people nasty people or awful people or terrible people. They are just people I don't like. And when I realized that, I went, oh, that means that if someone else doesn't like me, that doesn't mean that I am not talented and funny and beautiful and great and all those other things. I'm just not that person for them. And that's okay. And it liberated me. And so, as an aside from this, if there are people who are constantly coming up in your space who give you that ick, not the ick of but the ick of like yucky tight tummy when you see their posts, when you see their stuff, and it could be me. Any of that stuff that you've got ick, unfollow them, don't have them. And if it's really bad, if they still keep on coming up, block them. It's not personal against that person. It's not that that person has done anything wrong or that they're less of who they are. It's not even you judging them for not doing the right stuff. Just sometimes there are people that we don't like. And sometimes it's good to clear that space. And so if you get someone who's a hater, that's on there all the time, if you really need to, not necessarily that first comment, if you want to block that person so they can't come in your space anymore, you are allowed to do that. You are allowed to do that because it is your space. Luckily, this is not real life. This is not real life. It might be hard to do that if we were in a work environment and that person was sitting next to you. But there is also order, which is essentially what blocking is. So you can block those people if you really want to, but I don't want you to be too trigger happy on that if we don't need it, okay? I do block some people. I block people if they approach me. So I had someone a few weeks ago. They approached me and said, hey, I'm interested in working with you. I said, great, let's make a time. What are you looking at? And he said, actually, I just really want to get to know you. Well, I'm blocking that guy. He is not going to be someone that I'm having in my space, right? Or if someone was sending me critical stuff all the time, instead of getting the ick from it, I'm just going to block that person, because I take my feedback from the people around me that I trust, that I know who I am. And that was also a long time coming of realizing that feedback from someone who hasn't earned the right to give us that feedback as well. It's a truth. It is such an important truth, because we do not know to take something from someone unless they've walked in our shoes, or they understand us, or they're coming to us with grace. However, there is still power to be learned and things to be learned from hate comments. So let's not delete the post. Let's not freak out. Let's not be reactionary. Let's instead reset. So let's first think and ask ourselves, what is it in this comment that's causing a reaction in me? Like, what is it? What is it that's causing that? Let's help use those hate comments to find our vulnerable moments, find the bits of us that are causing a reaction, and then develop tools to make us better. Let's make those hate comments, those meanies and trolleys, trolleys is so demeaning. I feel like I want to call them trolleys now. Those meanies and trolleys, let's make those people pay through our success, because that's the best way to get success from those things, right? Instead of letting it affect us. So obviously, if the hate comment is really bad and it's just totally awful, totally and utterly feel free to and or delete it. If it was just, I don't agree with this, you shouldn't be deleting those ones. But if it's like, you are a nasty fat bee who does it, whatever, like, who, I don't know, something revolting, report it. If it's really racist, if it's sexist, if it's really homophobic, if it's something that's really destructive, If it's something that is dangerous, report it. Like, do not fear about reporting it. Just report it, delete it. But I encourage you to do that only as a last resort. It is more powerful for us with most of the comments to use it as an opener for us to then be able to later develop content from it, because then it robs the power of that original writer and it shows the transformation that you brought. And I actually used this a couple of days on LinkedIn ago, because I had about a long time ago, actually, probably about 15 or 16 years ago, the last book I wrote before the book I've just written, which is called Be a Spider, Build a Web. You can get it in special, and I can give you a link to it for the special ebook at the moment. But if you, before I wrote that book, I wrote a book on internet dating called 88 Dates, which was a very different type of book. And it opened me up to be able to go and do a bit of TV. I was getting invited to lots of events, and I was really trying to build a profile. I really felt like this was my step into doing something. I was doing lots of blogging and lots of tweeting and very busy and stuff like that. I used to get a lot of hate comments when I was on television. I was on breakfast every second fortnight, and I'd feel amazing. They would do my hair and makeup. I had a designer who'd give me clothes to wear. I had a jeweler who gave me jewelry to wear. I felt amazing. I was a single mum. This was the only glamour moment of my fortnight. You know, it was amazing. And I got paid. So it was like amazing. And then I'd go on Twitter and there would be people going, what does that fat bitch know? And man, she's really ugly, or I bet she has no idea, she's just useless. And I would get so stuck in it. I'd get so stuck in it. But I managed most of that stuff. It was really easy to kind of manage most of those things. But then this person, and I shared this on my LinkedIn profile, wrote in a national column that I was a shameless self-promoter and pretty much that I was useless and all this sort of stuff. And it actually crippled me for years. I went, I'm not going to come out. I'm not of who I am. I'm not going to show who I am. I'm going to be really the same as everyone else. I'm going to be vanilla. I'm not going to show my weird. I did that and it didn't work and people didn't like it. Well, he didn't like it. It wasn't people. It wasn't all the people. It was he didn't like it. But I allowed one comment to really cripple me and stop me being scared to show my face. Stop me to show my face and confidence. And stop me kind of developing this whole part of myself that is a really cool part of allowing myself to help my clients, And so I took this hate comment that had stuck in me, and instead of it being something then that crippled me, it became a powerful tool for me to reshape and re-see. And then also now with the Content Master Web, teach other people how to overcome that. So the power of it's gone. I hold the power. They don't hold the power. And I think that, this is that powerful thing, is that our hate comment can do a powerful thing. That hate comment can do a powerful thing to help us transform. So this is what I would do. Here's a process. It's a 4-step process. Number 1, copy the post somewhere, copy it and put it so you're not looking at the post. Just take it out of the post and put it in a file. And then I want you to do what Kamini said exactly, which is amazing. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, please. Is it Kamini or Kamini? I hope I'm nervous now. But what I would like you to do is take time to really ask, how does it make you feel? What is it that's actually making you respond to this in some way? Is it making you feel angry because you know that they've said something that's wrong about you? Do you feel like it's unjust? Do you feel that it's making you feel inferior? Is it making you feel unsafe? Is it making you feel vulnerable, frustrated, incompetent, exposed? Really try to learn and listen to what it is that you are feeling, and then think about why it's giving you that trigger emotion. And ask yourself, why is this comment either, and it might be one or the other, is this comment either completely right, or is this comment completely wrong? And this was a good one for me. During that time back then, I was really involved in building a personal brand. And most of the time, it was a real drive to do it because I had 3 kids. I was trying to support them. And I did some right stuff and I did some bad stuff. And I remember there was a particular person who was pushing back at me, and I was so offended because they were really they were mean to me, but they had to be mean to me. And they were like, you just have to sell all the time to do this. And I just want you to just kind of relax now and just is about the business relationship. Sometimes it's about the friendship. And I remember getting really upset by that. It was actually my sister commenting, and she was, because I was just like always there, and it made me reflect and realize that I had to have times where I sat back and really looked at things. And I didn't want to listen to that. Who wants to listen to their sister? But she was actually completely right. And so I had to make a change myself inside. That was completely right. I still was like, that's a horrible thing to say to me. How dare you? You don't understand what I'm going through, all that sort of stuff. But actually the comment was actually completely right. And I then had to choose how I would handle it from that. Or it can be completely wrong. They could have said something like, you're a selfish person and stuff, and you know to your heart that that's not true. Then that is a completely wrong comment, but you can choose to talk and work through, why is it then, if it is completely untrue, am I so triggered by that? And really walk through that, because actually, as we know, if they haven't got the relationship with you, they do not have the right to give you that feedback. So if it's triggering for you, what's really going on? And then when we've worked out that sort of thing around, is it completely right and fair? Is it completely wrong and unfair? And actually really work that out, then we can choose how we'll handle it. And that's what we can either come back to that comment and we can acknowledge it. And if they're right, I think it's really important. I think you're right. Or we can decide they're completely wrong and either decide not to actually give it any energy and just let it sit there and ignore it. And one of the powerful things about this is that when we do that, we allow our community to come to our defense. I used to be a stuff columnist. I'm still a stuff columnist, but I was a stuff blogger back in the day, back 16, 17 years ago, when all the blogs were new on stuff. It's called, I can't remember what it's called, but it used to be a losing weight blog. And let me tell you about that blog. I'd actually successfully lost like 15 or 18 kilos or something before I started it. I went up and down like another 6 kilos, because every time I would make some progress, I would write an article or something, and I had to monitor we would get like 150 comments on a blog on a day, on a quiet day once a week. And I'd have to moderate that. And there were some mean comments. And I would literally, because I was an emotional eater, I'd get so upset. I'd be talking about how I'd successfully lost a couple of kilos that week and stuff like that. And people would just say the horriblest things, like the meanest things, because of course everyone wants to talk about someone else's weight. And I would get so upset by it. And so of course I'd emotionally eat and undo all the hard work that I'd done the previous week. And so, like that was a bad way of handling that. And it would have been so much better for me if I had actually gone through this process of actually going, why is this triggering for me? What's actually going on here? Is it right? Is it not right? And then choosing how to handle it instead of being so emotionally driven by the ups and downs that went on it. I think the key thing is with haters, meanies, and trolls is that when we start to make a conscious choice of how we manage it and making sure we do that instead of being trigger happy in how we do it, it makes a conscious choice. And I do agree, people online are often obsessed, Kate, with how they make these decisions for us. They obviously often love to really make personal comments about how they're going to talk to us and how they're going to manage talking to us. And it's crazy, it really doesn't reflect what's actually going on at all. And it is really low grade. It doesn't show well for them. But what happened that I think is really important is that when you are learning to reflect and create that reflection of that, is that if you've been building this community of other people who are already engaging with all the other posts, they will come to your defense. I know if I saw someone who was getting attacked, I would come to their defense. I would protect them. If I was in their community, I'd be like, hey, that wasn't okay. And yes, this can also create mentality. But yeah, I feel like Kate asks, can we shift it by stating that our community is about discussing ideas or behaviors and not people? I feel like potentially we can, but I think that people innately, like in terms of comments, when people see our faces all the time, I do feel like, and especially if you're doing a lot of video like this, people start to feel a lot of ownership about you. And I do think that what happens is they formulate an idea of who you are. And we can diffuse that quite easily. I know that I posted on Twitter a few weeks ago something about how I'd done this big typo in my my podcast had a problem. My podcast engineer hadn't set it up. She'd loaded the wrong podcast, and this person said, "Don't worry, nobody listens to your podcast anyway," which is a really mean comment. By the way, it gets 500 downloads a week, so but and I normally that would have really hurt me, and I was like, no, let's have a think about this. That makes me feel a little bit like, hey, exposed, because it makes me feel a bit like, oh, do you not think I'm successful? Didn't even know who the person was. And then I went, okay, he's completely wrong, because I know actually that the only reason I found out about it was because I got like 10 emails saying, hey, that podcast isn't right. So that obviously listens to it. So I said, I would have, so I answered back and said, I would have preferred it if no one had listened to it, because I wouldn't have felt so embarrassed. Unfortunately, the reason I found out was because so many people emailed me. So I managed to deflect that hate comment and still feel good about it. And that person said, fair enough, and did a smiley face. So I managed to move that statement away from what I was doing. So quite often, using this reset thing, originally when we do it, it can feel really hard because we've got to methodically go through that process of copy it so it's not on your post, take time to really learn how it makes you feel. And sometimes that part's the hardest, because as business owners, like I'm a Gen Xer, so we didn't get told really how to identify our feelings very well. And I know that's probably through all different levels of different stages and stuff like that. And often we don't identify our feelings very well. So anger can sometimes be frustration or disappointment, not actual anger. It might feel angry, but it might be I'm disappointed or I'm just feeling sad. And so I have learned to really take the time I need to do that. And that means I'll often do like, Kamini said before, around that whole dwelling on things and really reflecting. I've learned often a walk or a break away or changing my environment really helps me just process. And so I don't feel like I'm reacting. I also have a rule that I don't reply until I'm not feeling reactionary anymore, because I want to. That is my premium goal. I always do it. Sometimes I do react, but it's very rare now. It used to be all the time. So say if someone sends me a nasty DM or a nasty message, I did a podcast a few weeks ago about, Thunderpants and how they're removing gender from their website. I got quite a lot of hate emails from that. That would have made me feel very stressed. They hunted out my email address to do it. But actually, I felt really proud of that podcast. I knew and expected that it was a topic that people might react to. And to me, that made me feel like that podcast was a success, because if people were reacting to it, that was an expected result. And so I have learned to take that time to not react. So take that real time to really tap into your feelings. Use it as a self-development exercise for you. Really work out whether that comment is fair or unfair. If it's unfair, as in wrong, then you can relax it. And if it's fair, then you can go back and say, hey, that's actually a fair point, or you're right, I hadn't thought about that way. And either way, use it to create new content to really grow who you are in doing it. Are hate comments still unpleasant? Yes, they are. Is it still unfair that we have to deal with trolls and meanies? Yes, it is. But remember, the algorithm will protect you. They'll protect you. And if all else fails, that hater is just providing you with amazing future content. What a gift. What a gift. I'm really happy to stay on for a while if there's any questions or any conversations. I'll also pop the little link to the Content Master Web in here, and I'll also put it on where I'm in LinkedIn, where I'm live. So you've got that if you want to have a look at it. I don't know if I can do that because I don't think I did the settings. So I'll pop that into there. I'm just Just checking that that's there. And yeah, I hope that helped. Guys. And it was a real pleasure sharing this with you. I'm going to work out exactly how I do my proper streaming next time, but I hope that helped. And any questions, come and ask under the live and we can sort them out.
If there is anything I'd like you to get out of today, it would be this. You are someone who deserves to have a voice. You are someone who deserves to be on the internet. And if you've got a business, you deserve to have a business that you can share with confidence on the internet. So use this podcast to walk through what triggers you are finding when it comes to haters, meanies and trolls. And if you're scared of them and worried about them and you haven't had one yet, remember the algorithm is there to protect you. There are far more nicer people than mean people there on the internet. And it's likely that the worst won't happen, but when it does, it's because you're being super successful and reaching beyond your ideal audience, which is also a win. I hope this was helpful this week. Do come and be part of our group, Map It Marketing on Facebook. If you want questions answered, come and ask them in there. And follow me on TikTok. I am Rachel Klaver on TikTok, or Identify Marketing on Instagram if you want to come and check in with me or say hi. I love it when people do that. And if you found this podcast useful, please do remember to rate and review it or check out some of our older podcasts too. We've got quite a few there of all sorts of different topics, hopefully to help you as a small business owner thrive, survive, and become more confident. Have a great week.
If you love what you heard today, be sure to hit subscribe. And if you loved this episode in particular, I'd love it if you shared it on social media. Remember to tag me in so I can say thank you. Have a great week and we'll talk soon.